What if I wanted to back out?
You signed a contract, which means you made a commitment. The armed forces take commitments very seriously. What happened to you wanting to get out of New York as soon as possible?
I'm not for sure backing out. I just wanted to know if I could.
Now, I know a lot of the audience, especially in my comment section, have Marvin as their fan favorite. I've seen some say Ronnie and there are a few others, but my personal favorite from Raising Kanan is Jukebox. I once said that we really didn't get to see much of Juke in OG Power, which was unfortunately down to Anika Rose having other projects which limited her appearances on Power. Courtney Kemp even went onto record to say she wished she could have done more with Jukebox's character, and she did have plans to. She had plans to bring her to New York, where she would create absolute chaos for Ghost, Tommy and Tasha, which I think we would have all loved to have seen. I also read an article a while back where the storyline would have been very different if they did have Anika Rose for a little longer. It was said that she was the one who was actually supposed to kill Raina St. Patrick, and had that been the case, I reckon we may have even seen an eventual showdown between Tasha and Jukebox. Unfortunately, they couldn't go down that route, because she was casted to play as a lead role on another TV series, which does sometimes happen. Now with that being said, in the rest of this video, we're going to be running through the makings of Jukebox, how we're ready to see her taking a turn for the worst, and what's next for her character for the remainder of Season 3 as well as going into Season 4. But let's just take it back a step and remind ourselves of some of the trauma that she's been through in the lead up to Season 3. Now, Jukebox faced a lot of abandonment and rejection throughout her early childhood. Her mother left her when she was a baby. Marvin initially rejected her for being into girls. She lost her girlfriend Nicole to drugs cooked by Kanan, along with a world that she's gone on record in saying she stays away from. She was also rejected by Nicole's mother, Uncle Lou betrayed her by giving a song to Ziza, and also let her down again in 303. When she was finally reunited with her mom in Season 2, she found out Kenya didn't accept her for who she was, which did end up being the catalyst for this close bond that she now shares with Marvin. But at a point in Juke's life, Rock was the only person who Jukebox kind of looked up to, because everybody in her life let her down in some shape or form, although she did maintain a very close bond with Kanan even after what happened with Nicole. In Season 3, still hurting from everything that she'd been through, she looked on as the police department gave their farewell to Detective Berg, who actually helped Juke on more than one occasion. And that was the moment where she had enough of the death, violence, and loss of those who have had an influence on her life. So we saw her signing up to join the military, and we are going to get to the military point in a bit more detail in just a moment. But in between the military storyline and the trauma that she's faced, in a rare Power Universe moment, we actually saw some happiness thrown in Juke's direction. She smashed this audition out the park, even with Lou failing to show up with her track. We saw her earning a place in this girls group, and that gave her the break she was looking for in her music career.
Singing's not a career, it's a pastime.
Now in 301, it was said by her student advisor or counselor that music isn't a career, it's a hobby or a pastime, which actually serves as a real-life reminder to us all. Just because others don't share your visions and dreams, it doesn't mean you stop chasing them. And I am glad that Juke didn't stop, because she now finds herself as a lead of Butter. However, having said that, we all know at some point it will take a turn for the worst, which Crystal may have a role to play in. The lead role of the group was always going to be between Crystal and Juke, two very strong-minded individuals who were looking to make their position their own. However, also intertwined in the story is Kanan and Aisha. Jukebox warned Kanan not to fool around with Aisha because she was a nice girl who didn't really deserve that particular treatment Kanan gave her at the theatre. Now, not only has that contributed towards a bit of a breakdown in her and Kanan's relationship, we've also seen Juke and Aisha getting closer. Juke opened up to Aisha about her past with Nicole, albeit not the full truth around her death. It was a pretty big step for someone like Juke, and I liken Juke opening up to Aisha as her mirroring her father. We've seen Marvin open up in his anger management class, and more recently with Gerald, to deal what he's been through in the past, and the same goes for Juke with Aisha. So both Marvin and Juke are still dealing with the trauma of their past, although there still is a long way to go, and there definitely will be a lot more twists and turns. And on Marvin's part, wait till he finds out Gerald is a snitch. Now, I also wouldn't be surprised to see Juke and Aisha taking that next step, with them becoming an item. However, in the long run, we all know her relationship with Aisha will probably end in the same way as her music career. So what happens with that particular relationship? Let's wait and see, which is a question for the remainder of Season 3 and also for Season 4. Now, what about Crystal versus Juke? While she was waiting for a train to go to rehearsals, she was jumped by two girls who were sent by Crystal to try and stop her from getting to her rehearsals on time, because Crystal was after a spot as lead of Butter. But if there's one thing we've learned about Juke, she's as hard as they come.
But that voice gonna fool your ass, cause you never knew it harder than Jukebox.
She found herself in a situation which was 2-on-1, and even when she had a knife pointed in her direction, she still overcame the situation and just about made it to her rehearsals on time. Although I don't think Kia is stupid, I don't think she bought the story about her tripping and falling, and it is just something to keep in mind because she did say the lead role of Butter was still up for grabs if she felt there was a better candidate. Now Juke also told Crystal that her friends weren't shit and neither was she, but whether Crystal takes that warning on board or continues to try and fuck with Juke, I think I'd go with the second option. I do think she's going to continue in trying to ruffle Juke's feathers and eventually taking that lead role, which I wouldn't be surprised if she did take. I can even see a scenario where Crystal continues to press Juke's buttons and annoys her that much on top of all the Aisha and Kanan stuff, to the point where Juke gives her one hell of a beatdown, where she then finds herself kicked out of Butter, which could potentially send Juke down the military route. So once Juke joined the military, we know she signed the contract, she's done the medical examinations, and she's also been offered a few different roles. Although I do think her getting the lead role with Butter and the conflict with Crystal, that's just spurred her on even more to create a successful career in the music industry.
What if I wanted to back out?
You signed a contract, which means you made a commitment.
Now I do have to admit, I don't know much about the military, whether the contract that Juke signed can be undone, or whether they have the right to hold her to a commitment. I'm not too sure. But Sergeant Healy did mention that she made a commitment, and they take commitment seriously, so it is just something to keep in mind. If she loses a lead role and maybe finds herself kicked out of the group altogether, the military might be Juke's go-to option to get out of Queens for a while. Let's also not forget Marvin could go down based on Agent Tanner's investigation, and so we also have to factor in her losing Marvin once again. It also makes sense in terms of the character that we were accustomed to seeing in Power, where we were introduced to Jukebox as a cop in DC, and she was as cold and ruthless as they come. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a time jump and Juke actually did do a short stint with the military, which only makes her tougher, stronger, and more ruthless. Now just on a quick side note, I do think it's worth mentioning that she kept this particular part of her life a secret. She hid her acceptance letter when Marvin came into the room, and she hasn't told Rock, Marvin, or Uncle Lou either. So I do wonder what they'll say when and if they do find out, or if Marvin does come across this letter. But with us getting to the business end of the season, you do have to think, it is about to pick up some speed. And so this may be a hint with Juke wearing the same braids as the older Juke, that we are going to see a pretty dark turn pretty soon. Now what I would also love to see going forward is maybe Anika Rose narrating some of Jukebox's story later in the series, especially when she does take that dark turn. If there is a time jump or Jukebox does go to the military, then it really would be the perfect moment to have Anika Rose narrate some of the story along with 50. We know this is Kanan's story, but I do think the older Juke would add another dimension to Juke's character, who can explain the younger Juke's mindset, thought process, and maybe what she went through in the military if she does go. So here's hoping that they can make that happen. Now with all of that being said, that's a breakdown of where we currently are with Juke's story arc, and some questions going into the home stretch for Season 3 and Season 4 onwards, because as we all know, Juke will be here until the end of the series. But drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section along with your predictions for where you see Juke's character arc ending in Season 3. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.